You're listening to LSU Daily with Matt Musso, your home for all things LSU sports.
Off and running here on another edition of LSU Daily. Welcome in and glad to have you along for the ride. It's good to be back. I know it's obviously been a big layoff here since we've been able to do the show, but relaunched Musso at the Box, the LSU baseball specific podcast. We will talk a little bit of baseball here today on LSU Daily, but other football notes to get to as well, dealing with the Tigers. But just getting that relaunched, changing some things up with it, trying to get the broadcast schedule, the recording schedule kind of down. It took a minute, but we're back and should be, full bore ready to go. So like, share, subscribe, follow me on social media. All of that is greatly appreciated. And let's go ahead and get right to it. We'll start LSU football. Tigers got some good news for the class of 2026 here recently, earlier this week. Four-star wide receiver out of Louisiana, the number 2 wide receiver in Louisiana, Kenny Darby, has officially shut down his recruitment. He is committed to LSU, so for the class of 26, has shut that down. He continues to rise as a national prospect. A little bit more on that here momentarily, but he was a former Mississippi State pledge. If you do not remember, once he received the offer from LSU, that was back in November, he made the decision pretty quick to decommit from Mississippi State and flip to LSU. He's out of Airline High School, and I mean, as a sophomore, or I should say, as a junior, because now he's finishing up his junior year right now. He'll be a senior in the fall. In his junior season, he led Louisiana in receiving. 100 receptions, 1,754 yards, 24 touchdowns. And that's really when he kind of started his rise. And as we said, that rise will continue. So this is a guy that is going to be very coveted, already is very coveted, has been pledged to LSU since November, and now in January of 2025, for the class of 2026, has said that he is shutting down his recruitment. So what do you, and I should note, Hayes Fawcett from On3, the first to have that report. What should you buy into this? What should you take from it? What does it actually mean? Well, recruiting these days is wild. Obviously, we know that. Things are going to go down to the wire no matter really what happens with NIL being involved. Revenue sharing is a part of this now as well, too, and that will go into effect this summer. How does that factor in? It's all the unknown. It's all to look at. We've seen players shut down recruitments before and obviously end up elsewhere. We've seen players shut down recruitments and obviously continue to take visits. While this is a great sign that Kenny Darby has said, you know what, this early in the process still, I'm staying true. I'm shutting it down. LSU's the place for me. It's the only place I want to be. And look, he's a local guy, Louisiana native, all of those things. That LSU's advantage is the dirt. We talk about all that, all those things all the time. It's never done until the ink is dry on the paper and the paperwork has been sent in. And sometimes even then, it's still not done. I mean, you saw the number 2 wide receiver or number 2 or 3 wide receiver in the country for class 2025 down the stretch of his recruitment. Forgive me, I can't remember his name, but down the stretch of his recruitment, Florida was really making a charge. He was committed to Oregon. It was thought that he was going to be a signing day flip. He actually ends up signing with Oregon, sending the paperwork in, all of those things, and then like a week or two later, asked out of his, financial aid agreement, the NIL agreement, everything with that with Oregon, asked out of it and flipped to Florida. So the ink was dry on the paper and it was sent in and it still didn't matter. I'm not telling you that's what Kenny Darby's going to do. Kenny Darby very well could remain solid, stay pledged to LSU. His recruitment is shut down, and he ends up on campus with you next year, and that would be awesome. But what I am saying is, in this era of recruiting, it's never been more apparent, never been more, emphasized more, I should say, than take it all with a grain of salt. He has said he's solid. He's shutting it down. There's a long way to go. So from this point forward, you watch what he does and not necessarily what he says. Actions always speak louder than words, right? So But look, nonetheless, that's great news for LSU. And you can imagine as he continues this rise, which he will, like the junior season he had, he stays healthy, he's probably going to eclipse that as a senior. And those top programs aren't going to back off. There's going to be a time throughout this that the decision has to be made once again, and we'll see. What happens. But for now, number 2 receiver in Louisiana, 4-star Kenny Darby, has shut down his commitment and is pledged solidly and committed solidly to the LSU Tigers for the class of 2026, a class that already ranks top 10 in the nation. Brian Kelly and his staff, they've been doling out offers left and right for the class of 2026 as well. So we'll keep you posted on anything that might pop. You get into spring ball, you get into the summer, and of course after another portal window and whatnot, you start to see names really fly off the board. And as guys make their decisions leading into their senior season so they can get signed, obviously for that early signing date. Okay, one more LSU football note here. They have announced the date of the annual National L Club spring game. LSU's spring game in 2025 will take place on April 12th in Tiger Stadium. However, that is all that we know so far. And I'm curious if there actually will be some changes coming to LSU's spring practice schedule, spring practice calendar. So the time for the spring game has not been determined, but we know it is April 12th inside Tiger Stadium. And the start of spring practice, the dates, LSU has not shared that yet. But, as always, they are, allowed 15 practices in that period of spring ball. And here's where I wonder if the change comes in. Throughout Brian Kelly's tenure so far at LSU, they've really manipulated spring practice with the LSU academic calendar to allow them to have the most possible time with the team. LSU really has, I believe every year since Brian Kelly's done this, they've started spring practice like a week or so before spring break and then resumed it after. That way, again, the way they look at it, they get kind of an extra week. You still only get the 15 practices, but you get an extra week for workouts and things of that nature. LSU has a late spring break this season, or this year, I should say, this academic calendar. Spring break is March 31st through April 4th. So the 31st through April 4th. Your spring game's on April 12th. So you're going to see some type of change there with the spring practice schedule, so to speak, for LSU. That will be interesting. One other thing of note, LSU spring game on the 12th takes place 4 days before the spring transfer portal window opens. So that opens on the 16th and runs through the 25th of April. That'll obviously give the players time to figure out their place on the roster, the depth chart, coaches a chance to assess everything with the team's needs and whatnot. So that timing obviously makes a lot of sense heading into a very pivotal year in 2025 for the LSU Tigers. So spring game, April 12th at Tiger Stadium. Time not determined yet, and the rest of the spring practice dates, including the start, have also not been released. But when they are, we will obviously pass that along to you. All right. Before we get out of here, I did want to touch on LSU baseball very quickly. This will be obviously a lot more condensed baseball conversation on LSU Daily. If you want the in-depth thoughts, like 25, 30 minutes on LSU baseball, Musso at the Box. If you have not already subscribed, please do so on the YouTube channel and your favorite podcast app. That is greatly appreciated. That's where you'll find the much more in-depth reactions, breakdowns, thoughts on that. It's a baseball-specific podcast, so I have more time, obviously, to dive into things. This encompasses all of LSU sports, but there will be baseball content here as well. So, again, Musso at the Box, your favorite podcast app, and the YouTube channel. It's also worth noting that LSU Daily will also join that YouTube channel. So that is in the works. That will happen. Again, like I said, to start the show with the recording schedules and all of those things, that is coming. So you'll also be able to have a video element with LSU Daily as we continue on throughout this process, and that will be on YouTube, and it will just join up with the Musso at the Box YouTube channel. So go ahead again, get subscribed if you have not already. The LSU baseball that I want to talk about. They opened up preseason camp last Friday. They've scrimmaged a handful of times already. Have a scrimmage recap up at Musso at the Box if you want to go check that out. What I want to talk about here today, though, is the coaching staff, because this is a very big part of the success that LSU can have in 2025. And Jay Johnson talked about this at his media availability, his press conference to open up preseason camp, where you look at LSU, and throughout his tenure so far, you've had multiple guys stay 1 year and then get head coaching jobs. Jason Kelly in 2022, pitching coach, boom, gets the head coaching job at Washington. Now he's actually at A&M as their pitching coach. That's neither here nor there yet. Wes Johnson, 1 year at LSU, 2023 pitching coach, Natty Champs, bam, gets an SEC head coaching job at Georgia. Had a lot of success there a year ago. Dan Fitzgerald in 2022, 1 year at LSU, bam, gets the head coaching job at Kansas. This is the first time that LSU has had the same staff 2 years in a row under Jay Johnson, and he talked about that and its importance.
Very happy for those guys that have been here and have gotten to do that, but having a pretty much stable staff, for a second year, really for the first time, I think our players will benefit from that. And when you have as much transition as we have with our roster, with as many guys going to professional baseball as we have, I think this was a really good year to have some, staff continuity.
So I think you hear that and you think to yourself, okay, but you have so many, new players, right? You had 8 pitchers alone leave for professional baseball. And he talked about it there. Like, all the guys we've left for professional baseball, you got new faces. I think this is a great time to finally have the staff continuity. And I think when all of us think about staff continuity, the first thing we think about is, it's great for the players, right, to have the same voice again and continue their development. And every one of these coaches that Jay Johnson has on staff, whether it's Nate Yeske, Josh Jordan, Mark Wanaka, Jamie Tutko in the video department and player development, they're all great at player development. So you would think, it's great to have them back another year with the players, but you don't have a lot of the same players back. Only 12 players return that played in a game for you in 2024. Now, they are very veteran players that contributed a lot, and that's a good thing for this team going forward. And they all are going to play very massive roles. But why I think staff continuity is good for this unit, even with the young guys, or the new faces, I should say, on the team, is because more so what it means for the staff itself. And that's actually how I think it can help the players. This is the first time in Jay Johnson's tenure at LSU that he's had this. And as great as it is for the players to have the same voice, it's great for the coaches too. These are the same guys who are in the same meeting rooms, who are all clear on the vision and everything they want to have for this program going forward, how they want to lead the program going forward. And it's a second year for them to be together and craft that and understand, okay, last year didn't go as well as we wanted. What didn't we do well enough? How didn't we get through to the players well enough? So just as much as it's great for the players to have the same voices in the same meeting rooms, I think it's equally, if not more, for the coaching staff to be together again. And the missing pieces kind of was Nate Yeske. I mean, you look at Josh Jordan. Josh Jordan's going into his 3rd year at LSU. He's been here. Mark Wanaka's been on staff with Jay Johnson since 2014, so he's going into his 4th year. Jordan, Wanaka, they've been there. Jamie Tutko's been at LSU since 2016. Paul Maneri brought him on. So he's going into his 4th year with Jay Johnson, with Mark Wanaka, his 3rd with Josh Jordan. What you were missing was that pitching coach aspect. And when you look at year 2 at Arizona under Jay Johnson and Nate Yeske, that led to Omaha. Is it going to happen for LSU? I'm not telling you yes, but it can. And that's really what you want to know. Can this staff deliver the 8th championship? I think that they can. Will they? Well, that's going to depend on what we just talked about. How well they can deliver the vision, get the buy-in from this group of players, because there are new faces. But there are still plenty returning from last season that felt what it was like and now have to go forth and improve this year. So can they? Yeah, they can. Absolutely. Will they? That remains to be seen. They don't get to play a single pitch, a single inning. That's where it's going to come to the players. And the other thing I will say, there was a great reunion for LSU on staff. Josh Simpson. And a lot of you might not know Josh Simpson. Josh Simpson served as the director of baseball ops for the 2023 team that went to the Natty. He then left with Wes Johnson and went to Georgia. He spent last year at Georgia. Now he's back with LSU. And Jay Johnson talked about losing him a season ago and what that meant, like what he meant to the program, and also talked about having him back. And one of the things that he, emphasized was player relationships, how good Simpson is at the player relationship aspect of things. He's not in the baseball ops role this time, but he's on staff. And you look at the guys who are back still, who still remain from that 23 team that he's already familiar with, Jared Jones, Gavin Guidry, Josh Pearson, Jay Shores, there's still plenty of guys from that team. He already has those relationships, and now was on staff with Josh Jordan that year, was on staff with Mark Wanaka. He's familiar with the staff. He's familiar with players on the team, and if he's that good at building the player relationships, he'll have no problem building them with the guys, the new faces. That's a massive return for LSU. Can they deliver the championship? Oh, yeah. This is a championship staff. Will they? Depends on how well that message gets through and how well the players develop and how well they buy in. And you also have to have the player leadership. But the staff continuity is there. They can impart that message. We'll get our answer on how quickly it comes together starting Valentine's Day, February 14th, with LSU faces Purdue Fort Wayne. That's going to wrap it up. Y'all follow on social media. Subscribe to LSU Daily. Share all of that, greatly appreciated. And be here next time for more on LSU Daily.